talking about the Kent State and South Dakota State games, they were kind of a tale of two different teams, honestly, in my opinion. The Kent State game really showed how good Alabama can be defensively at times. Alabama did a very good job against Kent State. They didn't have a single guy get over 10 points against them. It really felt like they were locked into the scouting report. Alabama, by and large, just forced the guys to take the shots that they wanted to take and got the shots that we wanted. The only problem was Alabama couldn't hit anything, right? So Alabama ends up winning 81-54, and it really even felt like, Alabama never felt like Alabama was going to lose the game, but it also never felt like Alabama really took advantage as much as they could have, right? It really felt like shots were not falling. Chris Youngblood goes 2 of 9 from 3. Aiden Holloway went 3 of 8. Phylon goes 1 of 5. The team only shoots 25% as a team from 3. We shoot 50% from the free throw line. Just in general, was not a super successful shooting night. Was decent from 2, or was really good from 2, over 70%. But we'll talk about it later. This team is an elite 2-point shooting team. And the real difference was Alabama. As I said, Alabama just could not make a shot, it really felt like. But Alabama ends up winning. It's not really all that close. Alabama wins by 27. And it showed that Alabama can at times do well from a defensive perspective. They did cause 8 steals. But really the difference in the game is Alabama dominated the glass. 20 offensive, 40 defensive. Alabama just dominated the glass, and it inevitably was the difference in the game. That coupled with pretty decent defense and forcing the shots in which Alabama wanted to force, and Alabama was able to be really successful in that game. So, that's what happened in the Kent State game. I don't think we need to read too much into the game. Alabama was successful. There wasn't a ton, as I said, that we need to read into that game. But, that's how we're going to look at the game. They're able to force the shots they wanted to force, don't allow anybody to get into double figures, play your game successfully. Obviously, if we'd have hit some more shots, it would have been a larger margin of victory, but you're never going to complain with a 27-point win. Then we move over to the South Dakota State game. And the South Dakota State game really was the game that I expected. Alabama played about as well as we have here in recent memory. The only guy who really got going for South Dakota State was Oscar Clough. And if you read any of my preview articles or know anything about South Dakota State, Oscar Clough is an NBA player. I mean, he is an absolute pro. He's been in college for a long time. He has moves down low, and he's a tough assignment on defense, right? I thought that Cliff did a pretty good job, all things considered, defending him. I thought that Grant did a pretty good job, all things considered, defending him. But he is not, the traditional big man that you see in today's basketball. He is more of a, old school big man, and he has the moves to go with it, and he is super efficient. And he got his own. He did it on 18 shots, scores 21 points on 18 shots, 3 of 3 from the line, 15 rebounds, But he was the majority of that team, right? Again, if you know about South Dakota State, that should not shock you. He has been most of them. He leads them in almost every statistical category. So Oscar Clough is just that guy, right? But what you saw out of Alabama was the 3-guard duo. The 3-guard trio. And the 3-guard trio, played about as well as you could have asked. Aiden Holloway goes 8 of 19 from 3. Mark Sears goes 6 of 14 from 3. LeBaron Follins goes 6 of 7 from 2 to go with 6 assists. And it just was an absolutely crazy showing by your guards. Aiden goes 2 assists to 1 turnover. LeBaron goes 6 and 0, and Mark goes 5 and 2, right? So that's 13 and 3 from an assist to turnover ratio out of your guards. You got to love that, right? So that was really the difference in this game, was your guards played absolutely incredibly. Grant Nelson as well, played awesome. He, had 17 points, had a couple of long 2s that should have been 3s that his foot was on the line, as well as Aiden Sherrill also had another one that should have been a 3 but was a 2. But really the difference in this game was Alabama actually shot it decent. Alabama, again shoots phenomenally well from two, over 75%. They got 78% from two. However, they made 19 threes. Really 21 if you look at the one that Grant and Aiden Sherrill both shot with their toe on the line. And, completely different from a shooting perspective out of Alabama in this game. And that's what we'll talk about when we look at what needs to change or what Alabama needs to do going into SEC play. And it's just a slight uptick in three-point shooting percentage. I'm not saying Alabama needs to become the best three-point percentage team in the entire country because of how good their two-point percentage is. I think that Alabama just needs a slight uptick, back to some of the norm of what we've seen out of Nate Oates' teams and not even out of some of Nate Oates' best shooting teams. But a slight uptick in three-point percentage will go a long way for this team. And I think that we saw it in this game. I think that Alabama proved that they have that ability. They have some guys in Mark Sears, Aiden Holloway, Chris Youngblood still did not shoot super well in this game. He goes 1 of 6. I know he can shoot better than that. Phylon goes 2 of 7. Obviously, we know he can shoot better than that. Stevenson goes 0 of 4. Not exactly sure what's going on with him. Obviously, you gotta kind of keep playing him because he's done so well from a defensive perspective that I think he's earned the ability to be out there. But in my opinion, he's lost any ability to start. I think very clearly that he has to be out of the starting lineup. The one thing I will say about this game, and the thing that people talked about that was a little funny, is Nate had talked about kind of shrinking the lineup. However, he had been playing an 11-man rotation, right? Nate had been playing the 11-man rotation where all of the scholarship guys that were eligible were playing. And the only two that weren't were Latrell Wrightsville, obviously due to injury, and then Nas Cunningham due to the red shirt. And in this game, Houston Millette had a sickness, and Darion Reed turned his ankle, so neither one of those two guys played. And it really felt like because you had a shorter rotation, there was a little bit better shooting because you got more guys into rhythm. But I think it also more clearly showed you who earned more minutes and who didn't. And guys like Mo D, just prove you got to play him, right? Mohamed Diabate, from a defensive perspective, can do anything you need him to do. From a rebounding perspective, he has 7 offensive rebounds. He's just an absolute beast overall, and he really earns more minutes than he gets. So to me, that's what it proves. It also proves, again, I don't think Jaron Stevenson can start. I understand why you're playing him because of the length and because of the quote-unquote efficiency, and you can see him shoot well in practice, and he just isn't doing it in game. He's in a really bad slump. I understand that. But until he shows some ability to make something in a game outside of Vegas, it's really tough to play him. It just really is. I know. Again, you have to play him at certain moments because his defense is good enough to do that. His rebounding at times is good enough. He needs to work on the offensive rebounding, and that's something that Mo gives you that Jaron just doesn't. But that is one thing that we need to see out of Jaron. I think if he'll get back into putting the ball on the floor at times, and Nate talked about it, if he'll put the ball on the floor at times and not rely on just being a catch and shoot guy, I think that it will get a little better for him and potentially get out of his head. But as of this moment, Jaron Stevenson just can't be played. So that's what I want to talk about as it comes to those games. Again, in this game, Alabama showed that steals can lead to offense. You had 10 steals, 6 blocks. Those led to some pretty good offense. And Alabama comfortably wins this game. It was about the margin that I expected. A little bit higher scoring than I'd originally thought. I know my prediction near the end of the game, my prediction, kind of came to fruition with about 5.5 minutes to go. And I was like, yeah, I kind of underthought on this one. So it was exactly as I expected for this game, exact margins and kind of thought process. It just was a little higher scoring than I thought, obviously due to Alabama's ability to hit the threes, and South Dakota State did catch up or, did play with us. So that's what I have to say about those two games. Not a ton of breakdown, not a ton of analysis, and I know that. We'll go into the SEC games in a little bit more depth, but I just wanted to give a little bit of something because I know I have not talked about those with being out over Christmas time.